Welcome to Rainbows Are Circles, a podcast exploring human potential and everyday wonder. What possibilities open up for us when we explore life with optimism, curiosity, and an open mind? Join me, Julie Malari, as we wake up to wonder and speak with inspirational guests on the topics of personal development, alternative health, and even magical, mystical, yet often misunderstood practices. Are you ready? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Rainbows Are Circles. I'm your host, Julie Malari, and I'm super excited to share this special interview with you today with our guest, Troy Williams. Mr. Williams spent 18 years of his life in San Quentin State Prison for a crime he committed as a young man. While incarcerated, Troy educated himself as much as he could. He became a certified paralegal, founded a video and audio production program within the prison, and co-founded San Quentin's financial literacy program. Since his release in 2014, he's given back to his community in countless ways, including working as a youth program development specialist, restorative justice facilitator, and serving San Francisco District Attorney's formerly incarcerated advisory board, to name just a few of his accomplishments. He's also a cinematographer and filmmaker. In fact, he worked on the award-winning documentary called The Prison Within, which just released last month in August 2020. While I was thinking of what to say to introduce this episode, there was so much I was feeling and so much I wanted to share, yet I was having trouble finding the words. I was so struck and inspired by Mr. Williams' story, and I decided to let my thoughts just kind of flow in a stream of consciousness for his intro instead of trying too hard to think of what to say. So here's what came out. Everything is connected. Every person to each other. Every creature to this earth. A kind word and a fearful action ripple just the same. We can pretend not to see, hear, or understand, as we have done for so long. Or we can open our eyes, ears, and minds to witness, listen, and feel each other's stories, our collective story. I hope you enjoy this interview with Mr. Troy Williams. Today we have Troy Williams on the show. Really excited and honored to have him here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
As I mentioned in the intro, you spent some time in prison, and after you were released, you've been doing a lot of positive work for people in prison as well as for the youth, and you've been doing a lot of really amazing things in your community. So can you just share with us, maybe walk us through what brought you into the prison and how that experience influenced what you're doing now?
Right. So I guess there's a few different ways I can answer this question. And, the short answer would be that, I participated in the takeover robbery of a computer parts company. Myself and four other co-defendants three other co-defendants ran into a business and held people at gunpoint and started to load up their truck with the CPUs or processing units. And the police came. Somebody had pushed the silent alarm, and the police came and we fled. I was apprehended. My co-defendants were apprehended. Ultimately, I was sentenced to life in prison. But I think the deeper part of this question is what happened? How did I get to a point where I thought that committing a crime such as that was a viable option for me and for my people in my community, because there were many of us who thought like that. And, I would have to go back. I think the way I've been able to piece together my story from looking back is that I was 7 years old. I remember I was walking with my little brothers to the store, and in order to keep their attention, my goal was to let's play follow the leader. I'm gonna keep my little brother's attention because we had to cross streets, little roads, but we had to cross the streets or whatever. And so, we were playing follow the leader. If I jumped on the curb, you jumped on the curb. If I, jumped up and slapped the tree branch, you slapped the tree branch. If I touched the bumper of the car, you touched the bumper of the car, right? So we were just playing this little game, and I'm walking, and we went through what I thought was a bowling alley parking lot. As it turned out, it was the police department's parking lot. And this officer came in, a big, husky kind of white man walked out, and he started to accuse us of burglarizing cars. Now, I'm 7 years old. I'm as innocent as a 7-year-old could be. I don't even know what burglarize means, right? Like, if I saw money on the ground at that time, I would have picked it up and gave it back to its owner. I'm really an innocent 7-year-old child. And in the back of my head, now community had often talked about why we should not trust the police, but I had not had any experiences of why I shouldn't trust the police. And so there was no fear of me between law enforcement. In fact, a part of me admired first responders, law enforcement, firefighters, So he took us in the back. He separated me from my little brothers, and he told me that I would never see my family again. I just want people to think about what that does to a 7-year-old child. My father came in, and my father was upset beyond upset. And I remember my father removing us from that situation. And in my mind, that moment confirmed every reason why my community has said you don't trust the police. So fast forward the clock. 6 years later, I'm 13 years old. Once again, I'm on the way to the store. And this is at a time when Crip and blood was spreading through Southern California like a wildfire, right? And I'm coming out the store, and these group of guys, they hit me up. They like, where you from? And I'm like, I knew what they were asking me, but I'm like, I'm not from anywhere. What do you mean where I'm from? And they're like, well, where you live at? Oh, I live over here. Oh, you must be from this gang. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Where you from? Where you from? And, I admit I had a smart little mouth. So I'm like, I'm from my mama. And so they didn't really like that too much. And they wanted to fight me. And so I've never been afraid to have a fight. I was like, we can fight, but we're not going to be fighting because I'm from a gang, because I don't gangbang. Long story short, 6 guys began to chase me. And one of the guys had a full beard. Now I'm 13 years old, and I got men with full beards chasing me because they think I'm from this gang. On the way of me running, I had an opportunity to run directly across the street to that same police station where I was confronted at when I was 7 years old, or try to make it about a football field's length away to the other side of the park where I knew their rival gang hung out at, and they wouldn't chase me to that side of the park. Well, because of what happened to me at 7, there's no way that I'm running into a police station. So I attempted to make it across the street. On to the other side of the park. They caught me, stomped me. They beat me with sticks and chains and you name it. And guess who came to my rescue? That rival gang. From that day forward, like, just imagine I'm getting chased, I'm in fear, and I got these big, muscle bound men who come to like rescue me. And they're actually concerned about what's happening to me. They take me underneath their wing. And 2 weeks later, I was jumped into this gang. Less than a year later, I had took a person's life and was sentenced to juvenile youth authority. And I spent the ages of 15 to 21 in youth authority. And when I got out, I came home actually with really good intentions. When I went in, I did the whole, Malcolm X thing. Like I read the dictionary front and back. Like I studied. And I used to actually really like to go up to colleges and debate with professors and teachers. That was kind of my thing at the time when I came home. But everywhere I went, I was still faced with rejection. So in spite of all the knowledge I had gained from reading books and studying when I was locked up, that I didn't have was, emotional awareness. I didn't understand the subtleties about my emotions that would lead me back into this lifestyle of looking for comfort. And it wasn't long after that, I found myself after, first when you come home, at 21 years old, like I'm treated like a legend, right? Like I'm this really big figure that's coming back to my city, and everybody is kind of giving me all of this honor and this praise. But I want to do the right thing. I go to colleges. I'm getting rejected at colleges. I try to find a job. I'm getting rejected from jobs. I even tried to join the Air Force. I even tried to, join the military. And I was rejected from the military. But guess who didn't reject me? That gang didn't reject me, right? And I quickly found myself right back into that, not really understanding my emotional makeup. And then at the age of 27 is when I committed the crime that sentenced me to life in prison that I talked about a little bit earlier. But I always tell people, and I've given this talk in a lot of different places, and I've even given it before police department's cadet class. And I asked them, I say, what do you think would have happened with that little boy if his first run-in with law enforcement would have been different? Yeah. Right? What would happen? I wouldn't have ran to the arms of a gang for protection. I would have ran to the arms of the police department for protection. And you might be looking at, Lieutenant, I like to think higher myself, Captain, Commander Williams or something, right? But instead, you're looking at a guy that went on to commit a lot of harms against other people because he didn't have the community support that he actually needed. My mother and father was in the house. My father just passed away last year. My parents been married for 57 years. So I don't come from your stereotypical sort of background, but my father worked sun up to sundown and my mother worked all kind of odd hours in an attempt to give us a better life. But yet we were still left with the devices of community. Right. And that's the part that I think ultimately contribute to, some of my failures in life.
When you mentioned you were rejected from some of the places that you tried to apply for jobs or for school, was the rejection based on the fact that you had committed a crime before?
Absolutely. I had to check that box.
Okay.
Have you ever been incarcerated? Yes. And the moment people find out that you've been incarcerated, you feel the difference. You see the difference, right? I often tell people that I understood things I understood things on an emotional level when I couldn't give words to them. Like, in other words, my life has been dependent on me being able to walk into a room and read the heartbeat of that room. Because if that bar door closes and you don't know who's in that room or how people feeling in that room, your life could be in jeopardy. So I can walk into a room and I can feel the heartbeat of that room. I didn't have the vocabulary to like explain it or to talk about it, but I understood on a very like deep level. So when I walk into a place in the moment that they find out that I'm incarcerated, and you feel people's attitudes change towards you, you see it. You see how they treat you different. Automatically, I know it's not the place for me. You know, and with a young mind, not knowing how to deal with that, you go to where you're comfortable at.
Yeah.
As rough as that might sound, you know, went back to the block. That's what I knew. In spite of my parents' wishes, you know?
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your story. Most of what I and a lot of people know about prison, if we've never been to prison, is just what we see like on movies or on TV.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of that is accurate. So can you just walk us through like a typical day and maybe some of the challenges that you might experience throughout the day in prison?
Yeah. I guess one of the things that come to mind is that, you know, it's almost like watching the news. You know, if you watch the news about Oakland, which is where I'm living at now, if you watch the news, you know, you would think just Oakland is such this really bad, scary place. And Oakland is really a beautiful place. You know, like it's a beautiful place to live. But if all you see is the negative stuff, then that's what you assume to think about the city, right? And it's like that with prison. Like I watched, you know, in fact, this is what one of the things that really inspired me to become a filmmaker was watching all of these media outlets come into the prison system. Even if we got some of our best and charismatic speakers to sit in front of that camera and tell a story, they often had a way of demonizing and fear-mongering our stories, right? They would take a 50-year-old man and paint the picture of a 20-year-old adolescent juvenile based on the crime that he committed when he was 20 years old, right? Nobody looks at the 20, 30, and 40 years that this person has been incarcerated that took that where he had the ability to grow, you know? Like I learned the truth about my history as a black man from a black man on a prison tier. Like only thing school systems taught me was about slavery. They didn't teach me the truth of my history. So I didn't have a sense of pride in that. Right. So I think I got away from your question a little bit, but I think it's important to just to see how like a lot of what media gives us about prison is not the entire truth about prison. You know, that's like I said, that's one of the reasons that why I wanted to become a filmmaker, because I wanted to tell the story. Nobody told the stories about the tears I shed at night because I didn't know where my daughter was at. And I realized that there was nothing I could do for her. You know, that I was like in this helpless state. You know, nobody shares all the other stories of, for every one story that a person may hear about a riot or a stabbing or something that's happened in the prison, nobody talks about the other 99 stories where the peacekeepers on the yard go around and they diffuse situations, right? That story is just not told, you know. I mean, I'm sure, you know, any country, you can take any countries and take its a criminal element or a bad element from any country, and that's all you focus on, and you think that, you know, I mean, you think it was the worst place ever, you know. And at the same time, you know, prison is a bad place. It's not a natural place. You know, we talk about crimes in the bucket, and I like this. One of my friends, Ron Moss, I like to give credit where credit is due, but we often talk about crabs in the bucket. And he would say, we always talk about crabs in the bucket and how crabs in the bucket pull each other down. but no one ever talks about who put the crabs in the bucket. Right. So it's not their natural habitat. So of course they're not going to act within their nature. So you stick humanity and you put people inside these nothing but concrete and brick walls, and you treat them worse than you treat your animals. What do you expect? And on top of that, like I say, I went into the prison system because I had some unresolved trauma and some issues that needed dealt with. And now you place me in this box and you don't give me an opportunity to deal with that unresolved trauma. What do you expect?
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty inhumane when you think about it. Yeah. And I always wonder, I always feel like when you're in prison, that should be a time when you have like support and when you have counseling and when you have maybe some of the tools, or you can receive some of the tools that you didn't get, which is perhaps why you ended up there. What kinds of programs and tools did you have while you were in prison that were helpful to you?
Ooh, I'm kind of laughing because sometimes you laugh to keep from crying. My first 10 years, there was nothing. No. There was nothing. Like there maybe was, there was like a NA or AA program that could facilitate maybe 20, 25 people on a yard that housed 1,000 people, So we actually would try to formulate our own groups. Right. We would study, those of us who studied and had become learned, we would formulate our own groups and our own little education environments. But it wasn't until, and then along the way, I also had like a few teachers. Like one of my teachers, I'll never forget this lady. She gave me access to a bunch of self-help tapes. And I would go through these self-help tapes, and she let me create a group inside the classroom we was in, and we would go through these tapes. As long as, people finished the work they were supposed to do, we would go through these little tapes and sort of facilitate, some, personal growth and development from listening to, Les Brown or Tony Robbins, tapes like that kind of helped us push through and, reading different materials. But it wasn't until I actually, got to San Quentin that I was really able to like participate in, in programming, in some type of programs. And that went from Vogue, to, Real Choices, to other programs where we work with youth, creating writing programs, Shakespeare. I myself, I started participating in programs, then I started facilitating programs, and then I started creating programs. And that's what I started creating, like film and audio production programs inside the prison. And that sort of took my whole existence to a different level.
Okay. Do most people Are most people that you see in prison open to those programs, or are a lot of them just not interested?
Most people are very interested in programs. I remember, given the opportunity, people want to do something with their life. Like people don't want to just sit around and do nothing. And then so if programs exist, then people are going to get involved, right? Like people want to learn. They want something different. Right. Like many people want something different.
Do most prisons offer the opportunity and do programs like that?
Not, and that's why I was kind of like, when I laughed earlier, that's what I was thinking about. Like a lot of times CDCR likes to tout that, there's a lot. I will give them this. There are a lot more programs today than there were 10 years ago. It's still not enough, right? You have a lot of formerly incarcerated people who have come home, going back inside the prison system to offer programs to other people. But there's just the majority of, like, there's 34, 35 prisons in California,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe two, maybe three actually have real like serious programming. Even though nowadays they are starting to like increase programming inside of prisons, but the overwhelming majority of prisons have nothing because they're in these very rural and remote areas that are so hard to get to that, you know, it makes it very difficult for volunteers or people to go inside and, you know, bring a program.
Right. Right. You mentioned, the lady who gave you the self-help tapes, but I'm also curious if there was any person that you met, either another person that was in prison with you, or a counselor or guard, or somebody in the program who was the most influential person for you while you were there, or the most supportive.
You know, I think that's going to depend on what time and period in my life. Like I'm like 20 people just jumped out of my head just as you asked the question, you know. And one guy, like I'm serious, this is going in my movie right here. Like this scene, this is real life, but it's like out of a scene from a movie. I was going around and I was asking when I first got to Lancaster State Prison, I was asking people if they had any reading material. I wanted to read something about Black history, or I wanted to learn about my history. And this guy, slim guy, probably about 5'7", 5'8", he walks over to my door, very dark-skinned Black man. They used to call him Black. He walks over to my door and he looks up at the gun tower and he tells the gun tower, like, rack 109. And my door opens and he has a duffel bag of books, like photocopies of books that it had to be about 60 photocopies of books in this bag. So he opened up the door. He set the bag at the door. I looked through a couple of them and I'm like, I'm going to read this one. And he was like, no, read all of these books. And when you finish, return them. And I'm going to be quizzing you about them as we go along. And I'm okay. And, you know, I started to read, the Ivan Van Sertima's, the Sheikh Anta Diop's, the Francis Cress Wilson's, the Chancellor Williams. You know, I started to read all of these different books and it opened me up. You know, it really opened me up. And that started that really started that deep journey and a sense of pride in who I was as a Black man in this country beyond slavery.
Wow.
You know, that was a heavy moment. And like I say, there have been a lot of people like along the way who have been, influential. And of course, I better say my mama, because if I don't, I'm gonna be hearing from her if she ever hear this. But, she stuck with me when nobody else would, when nobody else did. She did what mamas do.
Yeah. Wow.
And there have been I often also with my film career, Warden Ayers, I got to give him his credit that, he allowed a program. Not only did he allow a program, but even when guards and other people didn't want the program in there, he made them do what they were supposed to do. Like he said, you're going to do this program, and if you don't like it, then you need to find yourself another job. I run this prison. And so when he allowed the film program to come inside and then allowed us to have access to the equipment even after our little 8-week class was over, he allowed us to run the program, in spite of everybody saying, well, no, you don't want to do that. And that changed my life. Like I have a career. Now because of that, because of his decision. Like I'm traveling the country and even the world because of his decision.
That's awesome.
So I always give credit where credit is due.
So on that note, tell us a little bit more about the work that you're doing now, and also what motivates the work that you're doing now.
So, of course, my lived experience is motivating. factor. Restorative justice is a deep factor in my life. So some of the work I'm doing, actually, I don't know if you can see right over my shoulder right here, The Prison Within. Mm-hmm. That is a documentary that I'm in and actually started filming when I was inside prison, along with my film partner, Catherine Hervey. So this film will be getting released on Amazon, I think Hulu, a couple of other streaming platforms on August the 25th. And it's called The Prison Within. And so, yeah, I'm real happy about that. I'm doing other film work. I'm also like, the work I do is like a combination of media and restorative justice. I want to take my experiences in life and turn them into something positive. And I want it to create dialogue or new types of conversations. And so I often, I'm working with kids in juvenile facilities. I actually just got funding to go back into the community where I grew up and was, gangbanging as a young person, to work with some of the young people there. My goal is to make sure that, I can't go back and undo things for myself, but what I can do is attempt to remove roadblocks from other people's lives. And so my goal is to go back and use the credibility that I have, as an OG in the community, and work with people and let them know, like, that's not what you really want. Because I guarantee you 20 years, you're going to change your mind. So you might as well change it now before you get bad. Yeah.
So I don't know if this is a silly question, but if you could, considering everything that you've learned and the way that it's inspired you to do the work you're doing now, would you go back and change your actions in the past?
I would. If I could, and the reason why I would is I hurt people when I didn't have to, and that's the part that hurts. That's when you don't. I didn't have to live that lifestyle. I didn't understand my emotional makeup and what led me there, but I come from I've never had to want for anything in my life. Never been without a meal, never. My parents, my father was a good man. My mother, was a sweet woman. We had our issues as family, like every family does, but I've never had to want, and so I made some decisions that ultimately I didn't have to. And if I can go back and undo some of those things and bypass 25 years of hell in the prison system, I definitely would. I didn't have to go to prison to learn the lesson. I went to prison because I didn't learn the lesson.
Right. So one of my friends, so I'm a yoga teacher, and one of my fellow yoga teachers and friends, her name's Deanne. She actually works with a program to teach yoga in, I think, a jail in California. And this was actually one of her questions. I think I watched one of your talks where you spoke about the parole system and how arbitrary it is, and how difficult it is once somebody leaves a prison to actually get started off on the right foot. What would your ideal send-off be for someone who's leaving prison and needs support and needs to not be in a situation that's going to end up get them back in prison? What would the ideal send-off be? Like, what would you need
right
when you're leaving?
So, and I haven't looked at this statistic in a couple of years, but last I looked at statistic, 67% of people who are released from prison ultimately go back to prison. And of those, I think it was about in the 50% actually commit new crimes, right? So what happens is that California, and I don't want to take credit for this, but California, it costs about $75,000 a year to keep 75, somewhere around there, to keep a person in prison a year, 1 year. we hold them in prison for all these years, and then when we release them, they're given $200 and told good luck, right? So what if we took that $75,000 a year that it costs to keep them in prison, and we know that the first 3 years of a person's reentry is critical? What if we took that $75,000 and split that out over a 3-year period and said, we're going to help this person get the resources they need, housing, job opportunity, some type of emotional or family reunification, right? Something that is going to, and not your typical like structures, because I don't like the way a lot of our typical structures kind of run. It's all about pushing numbers through instead of pushing people through. And so what if we took that and split that out over 3 years and made sure that individuals didn't have to come home and worry about how they were going to eat, how they were going to live. It was like, okay, what do you want to do? Go to school? Let's go to school. What trade do you want? Let's help a person within that 3-year period get back on their feet and become self-sufficient. To me, I think that's the way. Like I'm fortunate that I have a family I can fall back on, and I have a whole community that like really supported me when I came home. But I came home a little over 5 years ago with $200 in my pocket at 48 years old. Like, that's stress. And if I didn't have the emotional awareness that I have and the support that I have, it would have been real easy for me to say, you know what, I'm going to eat. You know, it would have been easy. Mm-hmm. Right? Because we have to do something different. Right? And we have to allow people with like this lived experience, like to benefit from their knowledge, from their wisdom. Like I said, there are so many formerly incarcerated people across this country that's doing some really great stuff, and the world, like a lot of people don't even have a clue, like, because mainstream media is still the propaganda machine, the fearmonger machine, you know. And I don't know, I just think we got to get away from that. I think there's a lot more that we can be doing with our resources other than just utilizing them to lock people up and keep them in prison.
Yeah. If people listening to this want to help or support in some way, how do you suggest people start?
I'm sure that there are a lot of organizations around right now, because of the amount of lifers and other formerly incarcerated people out. Get with an organization, help that organization. Be willing to follow the leadership of the formerly incarcerated people running that organization. A lot of times people come in and they want to bring their skill set, and they think because you have a skill set, you have a skill set that you got from a college, that you automatically think that that's supposed to put you in the leadership position, right? Because who am I? I don't have a degree. Well, I spent 25 years in prison, and I have a practical lived experience that is unmatched by whatever your theoretical model is, right? So, and I often do that. I often go to colleges and I will challenge a professor. I will challenge their theoretical degree up against my practical lived experience, and let's see who actually knows more about the prison system, right? Mm-hmm. And it's unmatched, right? And it's not to say there's not room for that. We definitely need that. We need your knowledge. We need your expertise. But we have to sit at the table because we're all stakeholders, right? We have to sit at the table. And sometimes the person closest to the issue understands the issue a little bit better because they had to live it, right? For example, and I know this is going to sound so ridiculous, but I was forced to go through an 8-week resume writing class from home. because somebody with a degree thought that they knew what I needed when I came home.
That is a long resume writing class.
Right? Like, first of all, I had a resume. I taught people how to write resumes. But even more so, who needs an 8-week resume writing class? like in 8 weeks, I'm working already.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like somebody goes back and sits in the office and they think of all these things that oh, this is what they need. And I used to show up at functions and people would be coming up with all these suggestions, and I would be like, excuse me. And they'd be like, yes. I'd be like, who here has actually been formerly incarcerated? And nobody would raise their hand. I'd be like, I got a problem with y'all. Like y'all making plans and not even talking to the people you making plans for.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't care about your grant money. I want people to succeed. You know, so people, you know, we got to be willing to, like, you can't be a great leader unless you're willing to follow too. You know, like, I don't know how we skip over the follow part to become just the leader when you ain't, you know, but I don't know, there's a lot of powerful work going on in the community. I think we should find a powerful organization, especially one that's being led by somebody who's formerly incarcerated, man or woman, and get behind them and help support them, help support what they're doing. Bring your knowledge, your expertise, and that, you know, and if you have a knowledge or expertise, like, I'm the kind of person, like, I want you to challenge me. I want you to, if I say something that don't sound right, I want you to be like, hey, that sounds crazy. And then we can have a conversation. I'd rather us have that communication than you sit there and be like, it sounds crazy in your mind, and then we don't never talk, and we never get to actually bring your skill set into the room that's effective, right? Yeah, you know what I mean? So that was one of my housemates.
That's who?
One of my housemates in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm on a podcast. All right. Yeah. But yeah, that's what I would hope. I would hope that people bring their skill sets to organizations. I mean, even if it's to teach people, like, if you're an organizer, you may know how to teach people how to organize, but maybe the person who's running the organization or has the idea knows what needs to be organized, you know, but don't know how to organize. I mean, I'm often like Dan myself with a lot of stuff. You know, I'm self-taught on a lot of things that I do, and there are certain things that I need help with. And I may not fully understand how to build a database or do whatever, but I know I need one. I know what needs to be in it, you know.
Right. What are some of the tools that you're using to make sure that you stay free? Because in one of your talks, you said that was one of your main goals. And this is a question that my friend Deanne had for you.
Yeah. Well, one, every day that I wake up, I make sure that my first thought is gratitude. And if I get out of bed and I haven't thought gratitude, I go jump back in bed. Because that keeps, like, my goal is to stay grounded, right? I face my fears, my anger, my frustrations, right? I have a really strong support group. You know, I have mentors, I have elders who, like, know me, and I respect them enough to listen to them, and they respect and care enough about me to tell me the truth, you know, even when I don't want to hear it, maybe sometime. And I think that's important, you know, to just have yourself circled around people who can, like, speak truth to you. And then I got people that, you know, I call and I might be upset about something, and I go vent. You know, I might vent. You know, I might want to call somebody and talk crazy for a little bit. And then after I talk crazy, they'd be like, okay, now we got that out the system. What's the plan? You know? And then we go make a real plan on how to do something. For me, it's all about staying connected to my emotional being. I have to stay grounded in that, because the moment I forget that is when I get off. And when I get off, it's not a good sight. And also, I think the other side of that is purpose. Like, I'm so purpose driven. Like, like I gotta focus. I know where I want to be in 10 years. Like, I know where I'm going, and nothing's gonna stop me from getting where I want to go. So
where do you want to be in 10 years?
Retired. But I'm like, my mindset, and I don't know, this may sound strange, but it's like I left. I want to use the word legacy of bad, behind, right? Like, my name on the street level, like, rang in not always a good way, And so I want to leave a legacy of good behind, like, and by, behind, I figure I got 10 more years of just really hard grinding to do, which means like I'm going back into my community. I'm making sure that I can plant some seeds of hope and growth for the young people there. That's going to change the dynamics of my whole city. I'm definitely, I went to Africa last year. I was in both Uganda and South Africa. And, I want to be a real African American. I need some land there, and I need some land in America. Like, I want to actually really build a future that my grandbabies can eat off of. And my media company, like, I want to get to a point where at least I'm filming at least one major film a year or something that speaks to the stories that I believe are relevant and important to tell. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you're already pretty well on that path.
I'm feeling pretty good where I'm at. And I got a little ways to go though, but I feel good. I feel very good.
Awesome. As you wrap up, I just wanted to see if there were any last words that you wanted to share with our listeners.
No, I just want to thank you for, having me on your show, and really just like, I'm just thankful that there's an opportunity to get the word out about all the good stuff that's going on. And like, let's make change. Like, let's make real change. Let's have some really deep, heartfelt conversations that need to be had in this country, whether we're talking about the criminal justice system or race. Like, we have to have some really tough conversations in order for us to get to the next phase. Other than that, we're gonna lose. We all gonna lose.
Yeah, definitely. I think just hearing your story and just people sharing their stories and their experiences that is what is so powerful, and that is what connects human beings to each other. And I just wanted to thank you for sharing your story and for just speaking out and doing all of the work that you're doing now, and your film coming out on August 25th, which is literally in 2 weeks, The Prison Within. And Troy, if people want to learn more about you or get in contact with you, what's the best way to reach out?
Probably the best way is to either go to troywilliamsjournal.com, and there's a contact page there. My website hasn't been updated in a little bit. So if anybody has any website skills, I built it myself, but I just haven't had the time to like keep it updated. But you can go to troywilliamsjournal.com and you can reach me through my contact page.
And so your film will be available on Netflix or Amazon?
From what my understanding is, it will be on Amazon, I believe Hulu, and some other streaming platforms.
Okay.
But you can look for it. You can actually go to the Prison Within Facebook page, and you can learn more about that. So everybody, please go there, check out the film. We want to have support for it, and we're actually trying to get it to every college and school around the country so people can see.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Troy. I really appreciate you having you on the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and have a great day, Julie.
Thank you. You too.
Boop, 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 boop. Boo. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Mr. Troy Williams. Really grateful to you, Troy, for coming on the show and for sharing that with us. It's really incredible to see all the ways that you are changing people's lives with your programs, with your films, with the work that you're doing with your community and with youth. And it's really beautiful to see. For those of you interested in learning more about Troy Williams, you can check out his website, troywilliamsjournal.com, and make sure to check out the Prison Within documentary. You can learn more on their Facebook page and also visit theprisonwithin.org. And for those of you who are listening that are feeling inspired to either donate or volunteer your time or help in some way, I encourage you to listen to that calling. And here are a few resources that you can check out that you can contribute to either with your time or with donations or simply by educating yourself and maybe sharing what you've learned with other people. We have the Ride Home program, the Insight Prison Project, and CaliforniaReentry.org. So check out those websites. They all help to support people either within the prison before they're released, or they help to support them after they're released and reintegrate back into their lives and society once they are released from prison. So again, all of this will be in the show notes. And that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, have a magical day. Bam, 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 bam. Wow, 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 wow. Rainbows are circles.